Hello, welcome everybody. My name is Owen Wibberley. I am a senior consultant here with Primeast, and I am joined today by Clive Wilson, one of my colleagues, author of Designing the Purposeful Organisation. I've asked Clive along today to discuss the situation we currently find ourselves in. This is obviously, it's a very difficult situation, and today actually marks 100 days since the initial press release from the Chinese government about the COVID-19 outbreak in Wuhan. Few could have predicted the changes that we would all be going through over the next 100 days. Obviously, we find ourselves working from home right now, but thanks to the wonders of modern technology, I am able to welcome Clive into this discussion. Now, I've read a lot and I've seen a lot about what we can do during this time, how we can work in remote teams, how we can help each other during this difficult time. However, I haven't seen too much regarding what we can do to prepare for a post-COVID-19 world. So I wanted to ask you about that, Clive, today. And really, first of all, just think about what are your initial predictions? What are your thoughts about the effects that this will have on our lives moving forward, specifically in the business world, but also in just the world around us?
Wow, there's so much in your question.
Yeah, sorry.
And great to be with you. Let me first of all say this is a challenging time, and our hearts go out to the people that have been affected in so many different ways, particularly with loved ones, relatives that have had the virus, and people that may have lost people as well. So that's always in the back of my mind at the moment. This is quite a challenge for us all and as a society.
Definitely.
And at the same time, I think this provides an opportunity for leaders as well in a bizarre way, because the world is giving us a breathing space, a chance to take stock of who we are, what is our role in the world, how we show up, and what our purpose is going forwards. And it seems that we have a unique moment in time to take stock and really ask ourselves how we were being before the pandemic came about. What was good about that? And perhaps what wasn't so good about that. And also, how have we been during the pandemic? And many organizations are earning themselves fabulous reputations during the pandemic for the way that they're showing up and the things that they're doing. And of course, there are the opposite. There are organizations who are doing things that they will regret because they will damage their brands and reputations, which will impact them for many years to come. So there's something about how we've been, how we're being, and how we'd like to be going forward to the future. And there are so many things that we could do right now. One is to actually get some data on those three situations. And there are lots of ways of doing that, but the one that springs most to mind, as you know, several of us at Primeast are practitioners with the Direct Values Centre methodology. And using that methodology, which simply measures the values that are at play in any system, for example, in a company or a nation. And it's perfectly possible now to measure the values that were playing out just before we went into this pandemic, and to measure the values that are being played out during the pandemic, and measure as well the values that we would like to have or need to have going into the future. And actually that data is easy to gather and it's priceless. It allows us to really get a sense of the opportunity for transformation. A lot of organizations talk about transformation in and amongst business as usual. And actually that's the hardest time to do transformation, is when we've got business as usual, because business as usual carries a certain amount of momentum of its own. Whereas this is giving us a bit of a time out. It's actually saying, while you're in this moment, take stock and re-emerge the way that you'd like to be going forward. So taking some data on that is really useful. And the other thing, of course, which I think a lot of people are noticing at the moment, is the need for scenario planning. And at the very least, I would encourage organisations to take stock of at least 4 scenarios. And the 4 scenarios that I'm thinking about are, what's the worst case for us as an organisation, for us as society? And remember, every organisation exists within society, so you've almost got to take stock of society first and then take stock of the organisation's perspective. So what's that worst case scenario? What is the best case scenario? What could we best hope for in terms of the timing that we emerge, what the world will be like, and how we'll respond to it? And also, what's the most probable, the most likely case, the thing that we can actually see in our mind's eye as being the most likely way forward? And I think this 4th scenario is really, really important, and that is, what is our intended scenario? Mm-hmm. Because in and amongst all of that, there are some opportunities for us to be in control. And this reminds me of yet another diagnostic that we use at Primeast, which is the leadership circle. Mm-hmm. And the leadership circle is a leadership developmental tool that measures the extent to which leaders are either reactive or creative. Mm-hmm. And I know that you're familiar with the methodology, Owen. Mm-hmm. But for those who are not, the difference between being reactive and being creative is profound at any time. And in a situation like this, it's even more profound. Mm-hmm. Because I mentioned earlier on that some organizations are actually damaging their brands by reacting, and I'm using the word deliberately, in a bad way. You know, asking people to go into situations that they're not comfortable with, or whatever it is. Sometimes it's necessary, but not all the time. So the way we react is one thing, and it can be damaging. In fact, reacting usually is damaging to some extent, or at least limiting. Whereas being purposefully creative, and what I mean by that is always having the purpose and the vision of the organization in our mind's eye, at every situation, in every dialogue that we have with any of our stakeholders, staff, suppliers, customers. A good leader will always have that purpose and vision in their mind, and they'll be looking for opportunities to kind of nudge progress in that direction. Mm-hmm. But of course, we can't do that if we've never thought about purpose and vision.
Yeah.
And actually, whilst purpose is usually the anchor and it's the vision that shifts the most, there will be some organizations who are realizing, and maybe even it's been pointed out to them with the current scenario, they're realizing that they're not in the business that they think they're in. Right. You know, for example, you take supermarket deliveries. They thought they were in the business of delivering supermarket goods to people's homes. They now realize that they're part of the very fabric of society that keeps life going. It is their work that enables us to do what we do. I mean, the NHS is another obvious example, but there are so many organizations now that are realizing the true purpose of what they do. They're not there just to deliver, they're there actually to keep society going, which is an inspiring purpose.
Definitely. And I think that a lot of people are becoming aware of that themselves as well, where maybe they've yes. taken these things for granted, and now they're becoming aware of just the important role that all these organizations play in just daily life, and that's yeah. good to see. So that could be one positive that maybe we take from this moving forward. What are some other positives that you think might occur as a result of this situation?
I read a wonderful article, and again I can provide a link, from McKinsey's yesterday. And McKinsey's were explaining the relationship between this pandemic and the other crisis that we face, which is the climate crisis. And they were making all sorts of distinctions and similarities. I mean, distinctions like, for example, the fact that this pandemic is during a particular window in time, and the world will come out the other side of that into something that resembles business as usual. Whereas the climate crisis is much more chronic from the point of view that it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And our job is to limit it and adapt to it. And so we can also learn some similar lessons. You know, those countries that have responded well and timely to this pandemic have had an easier time and will have an easier time. Those organizations that drag their heels and leave it to the last minute find that it's harder and more costly to adapt when that happens. And guess what? Exactly the same is with the climate crisis. Another observation that McKinsey's made, which I thought was really powerful, is that countries around the world will be looking to rebuild the economy post this pandemic. You know, many people may have lost their jobs, people will be out of work. So that is an opportunity. Why not use this time to employ people in those things, not just the energy world, but in anything that will help us to prepare the world for the decade that we've got ahead of us. Yeah, and it could be engineering, it could be forestry. There are so many things that the world could do with right now, which would help to make the economy recover.
So that kind of ties back to our intended scenario planning, I guess, like the things that we can do to try and help moving forward, organizations and society in general. So what can we do now as leaders? What can we do now? Actionable points that can help us prepare for that moving forward.
One is take stock of the culture.
Yeah.
You know, what was it like before the pandemic, during the pandemic? What does it need to be like after the pandemic? Collect that data and act on it strategically.
Right.
Second thing is be creative. Don't just react to the situation we find ourselves in. Consciously create a vision that will be good for our organization, its people, its stakeholders, and the world, and move towards it. Do the scenario planning, take that seriously, and be reasonably prepared for all those eventualities. And ask the unseemly questions. You know, nobody in the current scenario particularly wants to talk about opportunity. It's almost obscene to talk about opportunity when people are dying. But in actual fact, it's probably one of the best questions that we can ask, is what are the opportunities that this pause in business as usual presents to the world going forward? We've got a fantastic chance to reinvent ourselves as organizations, as individuals, as society, and sort of move into the next chapter in a way that we can be proud of.
Yeah. Okay. Those are all the questions I have for you today, Clive. So I'd just like to say thank you very much for joining us today. If leaders watching this or anyone watching this did want to act on this with the Barrett values, scenario planning, leadership circle, prime focus, which relates to a lot of what we were doing, what could they do with Primeast right now?
Well, we didn't touch on prime focus, of course, but just in a nutshell, so that people understand, prime focus is a methodology and a framework for helping organizations align to a particular purpose. So hence the book, Designing the Purposeful Organization. And the 8 chapters in a nutshell are purpose, vision, engagement, structure, character, results, success, and human talent. So people could probably get an idea of what that's all about. But the key thing when it comes to engaging with us at Primeast is don't feel that you've got to somehow put your challenge into a neat little box and say, this is it, please engage with us on this. Many leaders at the moment will be just having all sorts of complexity going on in their minds. And one of the things actually that springs to mind is, I believe Primeast and my colleagues are actually offering some free coaching to organizations going forward to help them through this pandemic. So take advantage of that. You know, you can have 3 free sessions with a Primeast coach just to help you navigate strategically the current situation that we find ourselves in. But even if you didn't want to go with that, or to use any of the other resources that are on the website, I would say just pick up the phone and talk to us. We're here to help. You know, many of us are sitting at home because various work streams have been curtailed because of the current situation. So for once in our lives, our diaries are not as full as they used to be. So talk to us. We're very happy to engage in a conversation.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much, Clive. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll have more discussions coming forward in the future. So thank you very much. See you next time.